This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Prime Minister's visit to France and UAE, strengthening strategic partnership. The participants are Shashi Uban Tripathi, former diplomat, and Nilova Roy Chaudhary, journalist.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just, in fact, reached Paris, the capital of France, on the first leg of his foreign visit, and where he is scheduled to be the guest of honor at France's National Day celebrations, the Bastille Day. The Bastille Day is a very, very important date in world history, in fact, because the French Revolution heralded the end of monarchy and sort of colonialism worldwide and brought in the Republic of France and subsequently democratized the entire globe slowly. So Bastille Day on the 14th of July is a very important day in global history. And for the Prime Minister to be invited by the French President Emmanuel Macron as the chief guest for this National Day is indeed symbolic of how close and how intense ties are between India and France at this point of time. India and France share a multifaceted and close relationship spreading across every aspect of human endeavor in life, from the strategic to the financial, economic, space research, energy, nuclear energy, cultural, everything. It is an extremely wide-ranging relationship, and it is getting closer as the time passes. In fact, France is the first country with which India really had a strategic partnership back in 1998. And this year also celebrates 25 years of that particular India-France strategic partnership. We are joined today by Ambassador Shashi Uban Tripathi, who is going to sort of walk us through the importance of this particular visit and tell us exactly why it is important at this point of time. Would you please tell us why this particular visit of the Prime Minister is as important as it is?
This visit of our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, to France is highly significant because it is expected to deepen and broaden our relationship with France. Now, this is not the first time that the Prime Minister is going to France. It is probably his sixth visit. But what makes this visit especially important is the fact that over the last few years, France has emerged as a staunch friend of India and a highly reliable strategic partner. As you rightly mentioned, our relationship with this country goes across various fields of endeavor. And this visit is expected to deepen that even further and take it to a higher level, even higher than a strategic relationship. I also want to mention that this friendship, India-France relationship, has over the years become for India the second most important bilateral tie after our ties with the United States of America.
That's a very interesting statement, Ambassador Tripathi. I mean, could you please sort of elaborate a little on that in terms of why you think that is the case?
Firstly, I want to press upon the point that you mentioned already in your opening remarks about the special gestures being shown by France to India. One gesture is inviting Prime Minister Modi to be the guest of honor at the Bastille Day parade or celebrations. Now, this is not usual. Unlike India, where we invite foreign dignitaries to be the chief guest at our Republic Day parade, France invites foreign guests as chief guests for their parade only once in a while. And the last invitation to be issued was to President Donald Trump in 2017. Also, it is not usual for France to invite contingents of foreign armed forces to take part in their parade. This time they have invited a contingent from India, and our armed forces have sent a tri-services contingent consisting of the Army, Navy, and Air Force to march in the Bastille Day parade. This too is a special gesture. And then, of course, the warmth which our Prime Minister has been received and the program that has been chalked out for him shows the importance that France attaches to its growing relationship with India. I would like to mention quickly, very briefly, the program as it stands today and the most significant aspects of that program. Now, today, as we know, the PM will be there and he will meet with the Prime Minister of France. He will also meet with the presidents of the Senate, which is their upper house, and the National Assembly, which is the lower house. And then in the evening, there will be a private dinner by President Macron at the Champs-Élysées Palace. Tomorrow, there will be the main event and the Bastille Day celebration, the parade, where our Prime Minister will be the guest of honor. And of course, our contingent will participate in that parade. Also, 3 of our Rafale jets are going to participate with the French Air Force in their air show tomorrow. Then, of course, there is the state banquet, and that is to be held at the Louvre, which is their famous museum, I believe one of the biggest in the world. There are about 200 guests who have been invited. Then, of course, there is the official talks with the two delegations and the two primaries, our Prime Minister and President Macron, and the signing of agreements. So, in between, of course, our Prime Minister is going to meet with CEOs of important French entities, commercial entities, multinational entities, and of course, he will meet with the diaspora. So, all that gives a lot of substance to this visit to make it really important and special.
As you rightly pointed out, the strategic partnership is a very, very important part of the relationship with France, and it stretches across every aspect, even from energy. France and India are part of the International Solar Alliance, among other things. Nuclear power cooperation is very high on the agenda with France. But increasingly, the defense relationship has become a very, very close one. And both India's and France's interests seem to be converging in the Indian Ocean region and the Indo-Pacific region. India is scheduled to be buying more Rafale aircraft, this time for its Navy. This is, as you rightly pointed out, a very substantial visit that is going to be taking place. But beyond just the substance of the defense and the strategic relationship, could you describe how the sort of cultural and sort of friendly ties have evolved over the past 25 odd years? Because earlier France had always been a little wary of India and, they were not that close. But now, as you rightly pointed out, it's probably the second most important strategic partnership that India has.
You would have marked that this year is the 25th anniversary of India's strategic partnership with France, and we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of India-France strategic partnership. Also, these strategic elements have been strengthened over the years. Now, it's important to note that France was probably the only Western country that opposed sanctions on India after our 1998 nuclear tests, what we call the PNE, or the peaceful nuclear explosion. France was probably the only Western country to impose sanctions on India. So, it started out like that. Over the years, our defense partnership with them has increased. Recently, we know that we bought 36 Rafale fighter jets from France, and we are on the verge of signing another agreement for yet another 26 jets for the Navy. Also, I believe we are about to sign an agreement for 3 Scorpene submarines, in addition to the ones that we already have. Now, the important and an interesting thing about the Scorpene submarine deal is that it is a co-venture in the sense that India and France will transfer technology to India. So it is going to be a venture which will have co-designing, co-development, and co-production at its base. That is what makes it really special and different from normal defense deals. In addition to the defense, there are other fields, as you mentioned, in which we cooperate with France. And these are space, civil nuclear energy, blue economy, climate change, and of course, the Indo-Pacific. Now, on this, I do want to mention that India and France do share a sense of caution about the aggressive footprint of our neighbor, China, in the Indo-Pacific region. And not just the Indo-Pacific, but also in the Indian Ocean region. We all know what's happening in the South China Sea. So I think it is in the interest of both France and India to come together to ensure an open and free Indo-Pacific and ensure the security of the Indian Ocean. That is how I would interpret Prime Minister Modi's comments on embarking on his visit, that he will also talk about blue economies. Blue economies are the countries of the Indian Ocean littoral area, the countries that surround the Indian Ocean. So it's important, if you look at it from that angle, that the security aspect in our bilateral relationship is getting strengthened and enhanced.
The other aspect that the Prime Minister spoke about in his departure statement was that India, the UN Security Council without India is quite futile exercise, as it were, in international relations. France has consistently supported India's bid to be a permanent member of the UN Security Council.
Yes, this time during PM's visit to the US, President Biden also came out categorically in favor of India's membership of the Security Council. France has always been supportive. So that's another area where our values and our ideas coincide. Now, the other thing I want to mention, Dilova, is that I think everyone has noticed this. There is great chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and President Macron. And this chemistry seems to have increased over the years and become stronger. And you know, as we have in personal relationships, so also in international affairs, you'll agree, personal rapport between the leaders has beneficial effect on the ties between the two countries.
Indeed.
And this is how one looks at the growing rapport between Prime Minister Modi and President Macron.
In fact, the bilateral relationship and the closeness of that is also a part of what India has begun with the United Arab Emirates, where Prime Minister will be visiting after France. And he has become extremely close to the leadership of the UAE as well, where in order to advance India's strategic and other interests in that region. Would that be a correct assessment?
I agree with you there. Absolutely. And you know, somewhere this is reflected in the bilateral ties between the countries.
So thank you so much, Ambassador Tripathi, and we will have a continued discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's visit to France and UAE, strengthening strategic partnership. The participants were Shashi Uban Tripathi, former diplomat, and Nilova Roy Chaudhary, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on Air. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on Air Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928-909-4044.